If you carry a firearm and discharge your weapon in self-defense, you could face hundreds of thousands of dollars in legal fees and expenses. So carry the protection of CCW Safe, Self-Defense Legal Services membership. Upfront payment of all criminal and civil defense costs with no out-of-pocket for members.
Are back. I'm Chris Evans, the CEO of Survival Dispatch, joined today by my good friend Khalid Mohammed from Command 11 in Pakistan. Khalid, doesn't it feel like we just got off of here, or is that just me? After the 3-hour marathon?
It should be just one continuous show.
It's like the Truman Show,
last night
right?
was a good show, Chris. Last night was
It was good. It was really good. I feel like the Truman Show, though. It never ends. We're always here. 24/7, 365. So
at some point, people are going to go back and watch episodes and go, they talked about all of this way back when.
Yeah, too funny. So today, Khalid and I put an episode together to discuss the original Crusades and the need for something similar here to save America and the Western world. We've got a sit rep, of course, before that we'll cover. And actually, before that, I'm going to make an announcement here for y'all. Let me get Khalid up on stage here as well. There we go. So what y'all are looking at here is a platform called Element, element.io, and it is built on the same code base as Signal. And Ro, Jason P., Tim Smith, and a bunch of other people have been working on this with me for well over a month. And we are going to transition in the first quarter from Signal to Element. So the underlying code, same secure code, no backdoors, but all kinds of additional features and functionality, including the ability for us to do webinars for Guardians only and those sort of things. I was going to open this up on January the 1st as a soft launch, but Ro and JP and I have a conversation going on exactly how we want to do that. So sometime, let's say in the first 10 days of January, we will soft launch the Survival Dispatch Guardians on Element, and we'll spend at least a couple months onboarding people before we hard launch sometime in March. Sometime in March. It's pretty awesome. What you're looking at here is the way it's organized is you have the SDN network, and then you have all of these spaces, rooms, channels, whatever you want to call them underneath. And I just went through all this stuff and cleared my messages maybe 15 minutes ago. And as you can see, there's a whole bunch more new stuff popping up. It's very impressive. We give up nothing security wise, but we gain a whole bunch of functionality. Plus we gain the ability to scale to hundreds of thousands of members if we grow to that point where Signal is not capable of scaling to that level. So if you're interested in being one of the, let's say, second tier testers, because the first tier has been at this for a while, send an email to support@survivaldispatch.com. We'll get you on the list, and Ro, JP, or myself will get an invite out to you. And stay tuned for the next piece as to exactly where we're going to host this. That's another part to this as well. We're probably going to end up hosting this on our own server, which gives us another element of control, no censorship, nobody being kicked off, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So pretty cool stuff. Merry Christmas to the Guardians community. It's been a big project so far, and it's fixing to become an even bigger project. So before we get into the sit rep, let's cover today's conflicted question. Conflictedthegame.com, 14 card decks set in post-apocalyptic scenarios. Most of the questions have some element of morality, hence the name Conflicted. Someone close to Morgan is being held prisoner. A rescue mission would certainly cost lives on both sides. Would you risk the lives of your men for the sake of a loved one? If you are Morgan, how would you handle this situation? That's an interesting one. We'll have to put some thought to that, Khalid. Alrighty, so it's time for everybody's blood pressure to go up. Merry Christmas. The first one here, I'm not going to play his whole video. It's 15 minutes long, but the mayor of Paterson, New Jersey, declares that it is not an American city. It's a Palestinian city. Paterson is the capital of Palestine in the United States of America. I'm going to try to get through the first few minutes. No promises. But if this doesn't jack your blood pressure up, you are not a real American. TM Randy Nance.
Assalamu alaikum. Ramadan Mubarak. Paterson is proud to have the largest Muslim population in the state of New Jersey. And we are a better city because Muslims call Paterson home. And as you can see here in South Paterson on Palestine Way, we are proud to light the Hilal, something that has inspired other cities. As a matter of fact, over 50 cities now in this state light the Hilal, and I'd like to think 60, I stand to be corrected, over 60 other municipalities in the state of New Jersey light a Fanus or Halal, and I'd like to think that Paterson has inspired all of these cities and towns. Yalla, Zaku, come on. But I want to brag about Paterson first. Paterson embraces and appreciates Islam. So much so that we are one of the few cities in the country where children are afforded a day off for both Eid holidays so they can celebrate with their families. Paterson is one of the few cities where children in schools can have halal food on in their cafeterias. The children should be clapping for that one. Day off and halal food? Come on, guys. Get with the program.
I want to go back to school.
No, they want day off, right? They want to. Anyway. Also, the Adhan, the call to prayer, thanks to the city council and the administration, can be heard in the city of Paterson when it is time to pray. And I also would like to state that since taking office, we opened up the doors of City Hall for the first time in Paterson's history to have a community iftar to break fast in Paterson. This year, the sheriff will join us. That will be on Thursday, March 13th at 6 p.m. And also, Paterson is probably one of the few municipalities. We have not one, not two, but three Muslim city council members as a part of our governing body.
Golly, tell me this isn't self-inflicted genocide, Khalid.
It is. Paterson's been occupied for decades now. If you think about it, Paterson has been invaded by radical Muslims, radical jihadis for many, many years, and no one's given a fuck the whole time they've done it. Now that they've gotten control and they believe that they can turn a city over, they've done it. And you're going to see, just like Mamdani is doing in New York, you're going to see the same thing happen in Paterson. But the mentality that's happening is, it needs to go to hell. I mean, this needs to stop, and it needs to stop now, because this is out of control.
Yeah, out of control is a good way to describe it. So let's move on to the next one here. Listen closely to historian Bill Federer. This isn't sugar-coated. He warns that by 2030, Europe could reach a Muslim majority, and once that happens, the shift won't stop at no-go zones. It won't just be pockets of Paris, Belgium, or London. Entire cities could be transformed through the ballot box. He reminds people of history that's been conveniently forgotten. Egypt was fully Christian for 6 centuries. Not anymore. All of North Africa was Christian for 6 centuries. Gone. Turkey, home to all 7 churches named in Revelation, overtaken by Muslim Turks. Constantinople, once the greatest Christian city on earth, saw Hagia Sophia, the largest church in the world, turned into a mosque. And now he says the same path is forming again. 1 minute and 9 seconds.
So they say that by 2030, there will be a majority Muslim population in Europe, and they'll just flat out vote in Sharia law. And it won't just be no-go zones where they take over entire neighborhoods in Paris or around Belgium and London. No, they'll take over entire cities. And people forget, Egypt was completely Christian for 6 centuries. It's not anymore. All of North Africa was completely Christian for 6 centuries. It's not anymore. All of Turkey, all 7 churches mentioned in the book of Revelation were all in Turkey. And they were all taken over by the Muslim Turks. Constantinople was the largest Christian city in the world, and the largest Christian church in the world for hundreds of years was the Hagia Sophia, and it got turned into a mosque, and so they want to do the same thing with the Vatican. And recently they allowed Muslim prayers in the Vatican, so we see that's headed in that direction.
Wow!
And the tremendous number of burning of churches in Europe.
And if you talk about this,
Islamic immigration.
So, Khalid, I'll let you go first as far as Europe's concerned. Just speak to your general concerns. What are your general concerns with regards to Europe?
Well, here's where Europe's made the mistake. They have opened their borders just like Biden did with the US. In the process of opening your borders, you've allowed people to come in that didn't belong in your countries. First problem. Second problem, you have allowed the Muslim Brotherhood to operate openly throughout Europe. I mean, if you look at the UK government, it's completely controlled by the Muslim Brotherhood. There's no hands off in the policy at all. Everything that they want done is done. Number 3, when you look at changing the ballots, being able to change governments based on the ballot box, that is one of the main objectives of what the Muslim Brotherhood wants. What they've understood, when we look back at the 1983 and the 1993 manifestos that were written by the Muslim Brotherhood, they clearly said, we cannot do this by force. We need to slowly infiltrate, get our people in, win through the ballot box, and then change the ideology of every country we are operating in. This is where I have the problem. Europe has allowed this to happen. In the process of letting that happen, the US has been asleep and not done anything to stop the Muslim Brotherhood. Every mosque in the United States is controlled by the Muslim Brotherhood. The Muslim Students Association in the United States is a Muslim Brotherhood organization. These are things that people are not looking at. There's a reason why every Muslim says they want the Muslim Brotherhood gone, because that ideology is pervasive, it's offensive, it is hostile towards any culture it goes into. And that is not something that we want this to happen, that we want to happen anywhere. What needs to happen is America from Europe very quickly and stop the Muslim Brotherhood's infiltration into the US.
Yeah, and how many times have we discussed this offline as well? It's unbelievable that the Muslim Brotherhood still has not been declared a terrorist organization, regardless of what Rubio said. It has not happened. So we've got, I don't know, maybe another 6 or 7 things in the sit rep, Khalid. This one caught my eye. Heavy police and National Guard presence reported about a half mile from U.S. Capitol on I-695 following reports of an officer down. The officer, appearing unresponsive, was loaded into another cruiser and rushed to the hospital. A little bit more digging on this, Khalid. This footage is not from the incident last night. This is from another incident where there was a massive traffic wreck. So I'm not sure why they used this. The latest news on the officer, by the way, he was helping somebody who was broke down on the side of the road and he was hit. The driver who hit him stuck around. It was an accident. It's not like the person did it on purpose. But this caught my eye for a very specific reason. I'm just going to play a couple minutes, not even. Like, I'm going to play maybe 20 seconds of this because there's an important point that Khalid and I both want to make with regards to this. So as you see them, the cops pulling in, notice how they're going this way and the traffic that they're trying to route is going through this way, which means effectively all of these cop cars in here and the ones approaching are piled up and trapped. Khalid, how do we get the word out to more American agencies and law enforcement officers that this SOP right here is going to get them killed, because the jihadis are counting on this being the process that law enforcement follows when they respond to a shooting or a bomb, whatever the case may be. They know they're going to pile up like sardines. And then what do they do once they're all piled up like sardines, Clede?
Boom. If you remember the active shooter in Atlanta at Emory University, they did the same thing there. If you remember the Manhattan scare, all the police came into one place, they filed everyone out in the same direction. You have literally taken the jihadi playbook and confirmed for them exactly how you're going to operate. And we have hammered this point over so many times, Chris, that the police need to change their SOPs, because you are sitting as open targets. If you have a sniper sitting someplace, he can take out as many cops as he wants. You put one suicide bomber or one IED into that mess right there, and you have taken out half of the police force. You cannot operate like this when you are looking at a jihadi threat. And I don't know whose door we need to knock on, who we need to get to listen and understand what we're talking about. This is an SOP that's going to get a lot of law enforcement killed for no reason whatsoever, other than lack of training and absolute stupidity. You cannot operate like this in the environment we're living in right now. It's a non-starter.
So, Khalid, all of that absolutely applies. So if and when they show up en masse like this, again, they're sitting targets, sitting ducks, but also it means that they're physically trapped, some of them. Whether or not they are killed by the terrorists, it means when another emergency happens somewhere, you've got a significant portion of your law enforcement bottled up in this one location, unable to get anywhere. I can't believe that this is the standard procedure, and we see it constantly. And I wish somebody in the law enforcement community would get a movement going to say, we cannot pile up like sardines in a can like this, because of jihadis, because of other emergencies happening. And I'm sure there's multiple other reasons as well, but this is a bad, bad situation. And the jihadis are counting on this, right, Khalid? I mean, you've brought intelligence to the table on this very topic.
Yep, because look, when you look at making a city vulnerable, this is the best way to do it. You get all of the police force, all of the first responders in one place, and you take them out. We saw that during the global war on terror as well. They would carry out a small attack, get military forces to move in the area, and carry out a second blast to take out all the military that came into the area. That is a known practice. Every GWAT vet will tell you this. They have seen this in Iraq, in Afghanistan, anywhere that the GWAT war went, anywhere where GWAT was going on. They have seen this exact tactic happen. They know how this ends. But for some reason, our police forces are not being taught. This is wrong. This is a bad SOP. Any way you look at it, this is a bad SOP. You are stuck. You are piled up. You are an open target. You cannot move. Even if there's a traffic accident, if there's another traffic accident on the other side of the road, you cannot do anything. Just look at the other side of the barrier in that open road there. If there were an accident there, not one of these cops could do anything on that side of the road, because they're stuck here.
Yeah, it's this one's something that's very concerning to me, because it's such a standard occurrence. If anybody out there is an active duty law enforcement officer or retired and knows of any agencies that are addressing this, pardon me, I would love to hear about it. We won't reveal your name or anything like that. But if you want to email us at support@survivaldispatch.com, I'd love to hear about it. I have to assume that somebody out there has cracked this nut and has a proper SOP. We just haven't seen it. And the $64,000 question is, how do you get more agencies to adopt said SOP, not to make themselves so vulnerable? So moving on to the next one here, we're back to blood pressure stuff here. God, I can't stand this guy. Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Frey is facing calls, to resign after he warned ICE agents may be killed if the operations continue in his city. What is wrong with this guy? God, this guy is such a piece of crap. Lord only knows what he's done behind closed doors, Khalid, to be so owned by the money kings, whoever you want to refer them to. 1 minute and 5 seconds.
I am increasingly concerned because of the chaos that is being caused by these ICE agents, that somebody is going to get seriously injured or killed. Somebody is going to get seriously injured or killed. And whether that is an ICE agent or a community member, we all know the tinderbox that could explode because of it. We all know that the federal government is looking for reasons to deploy more and more people to Minneapolis and blue cities around the country. We all know that we cannot afford to lose a single Minneapolis resident because they showed up and decided to protect their neighbors, because they showed up and decided to express their constitutional right to free speech. And so that concern is deep. It is held, by the way, not just by me and our residents and the people who are standing up behind me. The concern about getting somebody killed is also held by our police officers.
I don't even know what to say, Khalid. I can't stand him. I can't stand the piece of crap behind him, Tim Walz. These are lying sacks of shit. These are also the guys, by the way, who facilitated $9 billion in theft of taxpayer money by the Somali community in Minnesota. But here's a rhetorical question for you. How is him in particular, but also Tim Walz, how is this not inciting violence?
This is what I don't understand, Chris, because when you look at the Constitution, you are under the federal government. If the federal government enacts a policy, you have to follow that policy because they are taking out illegals. They are not after legal residents of the United States. If you have a visa or a green card or a passport saying that you aren't allowed to live in the US, ICE isn't going to bother you. They're after the people that are there illegally. Why, as a state, as a city, are you defending people that don't belong in this country? That's my first question for Soy Boy there. The second question I have for Soy Boy is, can you explain to me how you can justify $9 billion of Minnesota taxpayer money being sent to Al-Shabaab, a known listed terrorist organization for the United States, and still stand there and say, we're worried about ICE coming and taking out illegals? You're not concerned about the $9 billion that was stolen, but you're worried about ICE coming and taking the illegals off the streets? That makes no sense to me. The problem that I come up with is, how did this bastard get elected? You use Somali money, you use Somali influence to become mayor in Minnesota, in Minneapolis. Well, that's obvious. But do you represent the American people in the U.S. Constitution that you took an oath on, or do you represent the Somalis like Ilan Omar, who doesn't even belong in the U.S.?
Well, number one, I don't think it's a safe assumption that he was legitimately elected. I know I sound like a broken record, but I don't believe that our country's had legitimate elections for well over 100 years. And their MO is to basically publish bullshit polls where they've skewed them by oversampling specific demographics. And then they've installed these people. And for example, I know of nobody firsthand who voted for Kamala Harris when she was a senator. I know of nobody who voted for Eric Swalwell, all of these people in Northern California. And I know a lot of people in Northern California, and I've done business in Northern California for many, many years. I don't think this fag was legitimately elected. I think he's just another pawn who was installed. Same with Walz behind him as well, Tim Walz. I mean, nobody in the right mind votes for these people except for the people who are completely whacked out on SSRIs. Other than that, I'm not buying it. So moving on to the next one. This is downright offensive. In Dallas, police officers arrested 2 Christian street preachers while they were speaking on public property because they didn't back off. Christians are being arrested in Dallas for exercising their First Amendment. So for those who are not aware, Dallas County, Dallas proper has, theoretically gone blue. the vote tallies show blue. Now, whether or not that's really the case is, again, down to legitimate elections or not. We are super strong backers of the blue. Lots of good friends that are in law enforcement, but it only takes one bad apple like this asshole to ruin that goodwill, not for me, but for other people who are just looking for a reason to show or have ill will towards officers. This is brutal. 58 seconds.
Twice. You only told me twice? Go over there with him.
So what's the charge, officer?
Right now, interference with public duties.
How did he do that?
Kick me off the public property, officer. Now. What do you want to do?
So this officer just arrested my fellow brother because he's on public property and asking questions.
Okay, so you get to go too. Let's go.
Here's my.
On the radio right now. Sit down, thing up there, buddy. Sit down. Hey, I wanted to. Now, I'm gonna tell y'all two to go over there.
We're on public property right here.
This is not about public property.
I have the right to record this.
It is public property. This is not about public property. So why am I being arrested, officer? Because I told you to back off twice. You didn't do it. For being on public property.
Oh, that stuff just pisses me off. Khalid, I don't have anything more to say on this. Take it away if you want to add anything to it.
In a Judeo-Christian country, to be evangelizing Christianity and being arrested for that is an absolute comedy. I don't understand where you get off as a police officer who's taken an oath under the Constitution of the United States to arrest people who are actively using their right to freedom of speech. Either you have decided the First Amendment no longer exists and you are now punishing people based on that, or you have decided that Christian values no longer exist, which means America as a whole has been destroyed. You have to make that decision. The whole topic of tonight is the culture war that we're in and how Western civilization has been destroyed. This is a clear example of how it's been done. The United States has always been a Judeo-Christian country, period, end of story. Every country, every person that has moved to the United States has understood they are moving to a Christian country. You don't have the right to arrest Christians for talking about Christianity. Does that mean tomorrow you're going to lock up churches for talking about Christianity there?
Well, this is public property, which means the First Amendment is absolutely applicable. They were not causing a disturbance. They were not inciting violence. And this asshole arrests them for exercising their First Amendment rights. Again, this is the problem where it only takes, one or two bad apples to cause, a lot of hard feelings towards law enforcement that shouldn't exist. Maybe this guy's just having a bad day. I don't know what, but man, that guy's a dick. I don't know how else to put it. He's a dick. So let's move on to the next one here. Australia, France, and Germany have now all canceled their New Year's celebrations. It has all been canceled because the French government can no longer keep its citizens safe from radical Islamic terrorism. We are watching one of the most beautiful countries and cultures commit suicide. 3 minutes, 29 seconds. I probably won't play the whole thing, but I will play a good chunk of it.
A beautiful and spectacular event, and it has all been canceled because the French government can no longer keep its own people safe from potential radical Islamic terrorists that they have welcomed into their country. Think about that. France has let in so many Middle East and North African migrants that they can no longer assemble in crowds. We're watching one of the most beautiful countries and cultures in the world commit suicide, and this threat has now spread all over the West. This is not singular to Australia or France. It is everywhere now, including in Germany, where many are too scared to go to the country's many famous Christmas markets because they are now so dangerous. They're such a target for radical Islamists. Take a listen to the details of this report.
Terrorists have struck 7 European Christmas markets since 2014, 3 in France and 4 in Germany, all carried out by men of Muslim or Middle Eastern backgrounds. Authorities arrested 5 men suspected of planning attack number 8 in Germany last week. One of them, a Muslim cleric from a German mosque who urged his followers to kill as many people as possible.
Yeah. Attack number 8 foiled. There was another attack in Poland on a Christmas market foiled as well. The one in Germany, a Muslim cleric that left Egypt to move to Germany, moving to a country which tolerantly allows him to work at a mosque, to have a mosque. And what does he do when he gets to Germany and he's saved by the West? He begins indoctrinating other Muslims to murder as many Christians as they possibly can. Going to a German Christmas market at this point is a bit like playing Russian roulette. Is today the day that one of our asylum seekers living off our tax dollars is going to plow his car through this market and kill 20 of us? We don't know.
So I'll go ahead and stop it there, Khalid. But this is straight up an invasion. There's no other way to look at this. They've successfully invaded us. They've more than successfully invaded Europe. And I want to circle back to quickly for something with you here to get your thoughts on it. So you guys have nukes in Pakistan, fission style, not thermonuclear warheads, but you guys have nukes and about medium range missiles, no intercontinental ones. We sold a bunch of Trident ICBMs to Great Britain, who have them on 8 submarines that can launch thermonuclear warheads from anywhere on the planet, okay? Then you've got the French, who have the complete triad, right? They have air, land, and sea. They can launch thermonuclear warheads anywhere in the entire world. Right now, they say that 8% of the population in Great Britain is Muslim, and not born in America from a Muslim country, but not born in the UK, pardon me, from a Muslim country. They don't have to have 51% to take over the governments. And I've only ever heard one politician say what I'm fixing to say, and I've said it before. When these radicals take over the government in an even greater fashion in Great Britain and France, they will become world nuclear powers. And world nuclear powers held by jihadis who think that dying for their cause is righteous. That's a bad combination, man. Like that's my biggest fear. It is. Go ahead.
It's the biggest fear. It's the biggest fear that any analyst in the counterterrorism world or in the military world has. Because when you put those weapons in the hands of a jihadi, you have given them the ability to wage war on the entire planet. We have been watching this for a long time, and we've been talking for almost 5 months about what's happening in Europe and how Europe is being taken down slowly and surely by the radical belief system. The problem here that we've got is that not only do you have a radical belief system there, you have a government and a culture that's capitulating to them. It would be a very different story if the French, the British, and the Germans were to stand up as a people to this ideology and force it to come down. But you've got people going, well, we don't want to offend the Muslims because, it's not politically correct. Who gives a fuck about politically correct when they're destroying your civilization? They came to your country for safety, for security, for more opportunities. They did not come there to take it over because they would not have been allowed in the country if that was their intention. The problem that we've got right now is that until you start recognizing as a European, as a German, as a Frenchman, as a Britisher, as a Belgian, that these people are there to destroy your society, you will not be able to fight the culture war. Politically correct needs to be thrown out the window. They are not politically correct. Why do you still believe you have to be politically correct? Fight fire with fire. That's the belief that we work with. When you look at Command 11, our position has always been fight fire. Don't worry about being politically correct. Don't worry about hurting people's feelings. Someone's offending you, smack them once, smack them twice, smack them 3 times. If it doesn't work, put them in the ground, because they are not allowed to change what I believe and what my culture stands for. That is where the problem is in Europe, is that they're capitulating. And when you capitulate, just like we said before we went on air, you have 2 options, surrender or fight. Europe is surrendering.
Yeah, I mean, just in case y'all haven't noticed this, almost everything that we're covering in today's episode is related to the fact that we are under attack, we are at war, and if we don't do something about it, it's only going to get worse. And at the end of the day, you can call them crusades, whatever you want, but we are in need of something radically different than what we've been doing if we're going to save America and the West in general. So here's a great example. And Khalid, the way I describe what you just described is self-inflicted genocide. So you've got the wrong people being installed, not voted in legitimately, being installed. And then, like you said, they're capitulating, but it's unreal, man. This is self-inflicted genocide. Meanwhile, in Australia, Aussie man has a sign that says, "We are sick of terrorism and those that support it." Apparently, this now constitutes a hate crime and is illegal in Australia. 47 seconds.
The reason we've been called here is, I believe, an interaction occurred with the council this morning in relation to your sign.
Yep.
We've been notified about the sign. Whilst it's not offensive, in this current climate, there are concerns in relation to it being present on the main road that could incite further issues. All right.
In what respect then? Hang on, I want to ask you a question. Can we go and have a look at the sign? Let's go and have a look at the sign, and then you explain to me what you think is inciting about my sign. What part of my sign do you think? Which word on there?
As I said,
Yep.
It's not offensive.
Yep.
The issue is we're concerned
Yep.
in the current climate
Yep.
that it would give people an opportunity to damage, destroy property. You've listed your.
So here's a question for you, Khalid. Are people really that desperate for a shitty paycheck that they will go out and enforce this crap? It must be the case. I don't know how else. Either that, if they had their brains turned to complete shit.
I honestly don't understand. I mean, this is, we've talked about this before. I mean, this is the ideology, the mentality that's been taught through television, through the DEI belief system, through the woke system, that you need to accept everyone. Again, I come back to that word, capitulation. You are capitulating to the people that want to destroy you. Terrorism is wrong. You fought a 20-year war against terrorism. And now you have a problem with someone having a sign that we're tired of terrorism and the people who support it. Whose feelings does that hurt? Who are you really worried about? I mean, are you worried about what the terrorists think? Oh my God, the terrorists may get offended by the fact that we're fed up with terrorism. That we fought a 20-year war against them. In Pakistan, we're still fighting a war against them. I don't understand how much you have to screw up your brain to think that this is right, that you as a law enforcement professional can go and tell someone that, you know, that sign of yours, it offends people and we need to take it down. That's just bullshit. It's absolute bullshit.
So what do you think the chances are if somebody was standing on the sidewalk there waving an ISIS flag? What do you think would happen?
I don't think anything would happen. I think the police officer would go, you know what? We have to let you have your freedom of speech. This is where my problem, again, capitulation. The Constitution applies to the people that want to destroy you, but it doesn't apply to the people who want to protect you. That's not right. That's just not right.
It's not. And again, this is why I keep saying over and over again, we are at war. People have got to get their heads wrapped around this. We are at war. We've been invaded. We have people on our side actively committing treason against our countries by kowtowing to this crap. I mean, it's just unbelievable. If you had told me this is the way things were going to be even 15 years ago, I would have said not a chance. But this is, I don't recognize America anymore. This is not the America we grew up with. So here's Marine Le Pen accused of Islamophobia after detailing her plan to crack down on Islamic terrorism by shutting down mosques and deporting imams who preach jihad, holy war. Do you support her policies against Islam? Yes or no? 2 minutes, 20 seconds. I won't read the whole thing because I'm going to have to stop it and read the captions for people who are on phones because the font will probably be like a millimeter high, but I'm going to play a good portion of it.
J'en appelle
I appeal to the wisdom and the good sense
à la sagesse et au bon
of the French. Give me one
sens des Français. Qu'on me donne
reason, only one, to keep our territory.
une raison, une seule, pour garder sur notre territoire des
Foreigners who collaborate with a
étrangers qui collaborent avec une idéologie
totalitarian ideology that wants the death of the French.
totalitaire qui veut la mort des Français. Les binationaux
Binationals connected to Islamist ideology must be stripped
en
of
lien avec l'idéologie islamiste doivent être déchus
their nationality and expelled. That's the word of 2016, by the way. Remigration. You're going back to the shithole that you came from.
de leur nationalité et expulsés.
The French who adopt the ideology of the enemy must be
Français qui adoptent l'idéologie de l'ennemi doivent
brought before justice and punished. Amen to that. The laws
être traduits devant les tribunaux
Yeah.
et punis.
Yes.
exist, they just need to be applied.
Les lois existent, il suffit de les
And while I president, these laws will be applied. So I think she's saying if she was president there, it looks like maybe a little bit of a translation issue. These laws will be applied
appliquer. Eh bien, moi, présidente, ces lois seront
without weakening.
appliquées sans faiblir.
Yes.
That's basically the gist of it. I mean, you can kind of fill in the blanks. She has been persecuted like there's no tomorrow. So this lawfare that the Biden administration launched against Trump and his friends, the French government's been doing the same thing to Marine Le Pen as well. You know, bullshit charges out of nowhere. It's happening in all these Western countries. Who do you reckon is behind all of this, Clean? It's obviously the money kings, but you name the names. Name the names.
It's money
behind this.
Look, you've got the World Economic Forum that wants this to happen. You've got the UN that wants this to happen. I mean, the UN wrote a damn paper saying the migration warfare, how to move people into another country to change the demographic to take over a country. This was a United Nations paper that was written. How do you not say the UN's behind this? My problem here is when you follow the money, you will find everyone who's looking to destroy the world. Bill Gates, George Soros, the World Economic Forum. This is where it's going. When you look at what the US is doing right now, it's walking the same path that Europe walked 10 years ago. But the US is walking it at 3 times faster pace. Because the infiltration that's happened there, the people that are sitting in the cabinet of Donald Trump, the people that are sitting in the positions of bureaucracy in the Trump administration that have not been removed, that were appointed by Biden, that were appointed by Obama, those people are guiding this ideology to allow it to continue to work. The problem that we have right now is when you have all of these people working against a culture, when you have these people working against a Judeo-Christian ideology and belief system, you are talking about a culture war. The problem that we have right now is that everyone is so stuck in watching TikTok videos, Instagram videos, and chasing the social media for what is cool and what isn't cool, that you don't realize what's going on behind the scenes. And what's happening behind the scenes is going to destroy your country. And when it destroys your country, there is no reverse on that. That's where you'll finally realize that, holy shit, what have we done? I've been asleep at the wheel while this has been going on. Everyone's been talking about it, but I've been too busy satisfying my own need for self-indulgence to care about what's happening in my country. And when it's all gone, it's all gone. Look at where Europe is right now, and look at how much we've talked about what's happening in Europe. Germany has been captured. France has been captured. Great Britain has been captured. They belong to the ideological Muslim Brotherhood. They are funded by Qatar. They are funded by Saudi Arabia, and they are happy with it because they've capitulated. How many Americans are ready to capitulate to that ideology? That's where my problem comes up, because 9/11 2.0 is the end of the line for them. That's when they show you they are more powerful. That's when you will see every redneck, just like we talked about before we went on air, Chris, every redneck with a truck is going to go out and start a civil war. That civil war is going to tear the United States apart. It will rip the fabric of the US. Bringing that back together and stitching the country that we love so much back in is not going to be easy. Fight it now before you have to surrender. Again, two options: surrender or fight.
Khalid, are there any instances in history where these radical jihadis have captured a country and then the original people have managed to wrest control of their country back away from the jihadis?
No. I mean, even if you look at Arab Spring in Egypt, when you see how the Mubarak regime that was running for 50 years and brought all the education, all the development to Egypt, when the Muslim Brotherhood was able to take over Egypt, look what happened to Egypt. It's collapsed. The people are not able to do what they were able to do before, because now that ideology is in power. That same ideology is running through Europe right now. That same ideology is operating in the United States right now, and no one's paying attention to it. You don't see it as a threat. That threat, when it comes to force, is going to conquer the culture that you love so much. And once they take it, you either have to fight to the death or you have to capitulate. And I don't see a lot of Americans, based on what we've done so far in the past 5 months in all these episodes, I don't see a lot of Americans saying, yeah, I'm going to stand up and fight for the culture I love.
Yeah, so it's all part of this asymmetric fifth generation warfare that's being waged against the Western world by all of our enemies combined, including ridiculous shit like this that they sell to the mentally ill out there, especially white women in that age range of 20 to 40, 45. For those who are new to Survival Dispatch News, well over the majority of women in those categories, white women, 20 to 40, 45 years old, well over the majority of them take SSRIs. You know, these are mental drugs, and they cause all sorts of problems. They're supposed to fix anxiety and make them more at peace. In reality, what they do is they result in suicidal ideation, homicidal ideation, self-flagellation, and you end up with this kind of shit right here. Try to be less white. You know, if you go anywhere, Cleet, I know you know this, but if you go like Wikipedia, Google, or whatever, and you search on things like Black pride, Asian pride, this pride, that pride, they'll give you the whole spiel on how great it is. But as soon as the words white pride are raised, oh, white supremacists, KKK, you can't be proud to be white. You need to be less white. You know, it's, and they think we're stupid that we didn't notice in the past 15 years that there's barely any white people in TV commercials anymore. We're supposed to believe that 12% of the population being black, that it's not 12%. It's way more than that. It's this stuff, this Netflix stuff, right, that pisses me the fuck off, where you've got shows on Netflix now. I didn't mention this one before, but showing a black woman was the leader of Ireland back in the day, like the whitest country in the freaking world. And then they fall for this shit. They watch this crap on Netflix and they think it's real. But this is self-inflicted genocide. Try to be less white. How about try to be less of a fucking idiot? That gets my vote. You know? It's not that fucking complex. So John Quincy Adams, listen to this. John Quincy Adams, for crying out loud. This is crazy. This is a couple hundred plus years ago. In the 7th century of the Christian era, a wandering Arab of the lineage of Hagar, the Egyptian, combining the powers of transcendent genius with the preternatural energy of a fanatic and the fraudulent spirit of an impostor, proclaimed himself as a messenger from heaven and spread desolation and delusion over an extensive portion of the earth. Adopting from the sublime conception of the Mosaic law the doctrine of one omnipotent God, he connected indissolubly with it the audacious falsehood that he was himself his prophet and apostle. Adopting from the new revelation of Jesus the faith and hope of immortal life and of future retribution, he humbled it to the dust by adapting all the rewards and sanctions of his religion to the gratification of the sexual passion. He poisoned the sources of human felicity at the fountain by degrading the condition of the female sex and the allowance of polygamy, and he declared undistinguishing and exterminating war as part of his religion against all the rest of mankind. The essence of his doctrine was violence and lust to exalt the brutal over the spiritual part of human nature. I mean, the founders of our country here, Khalid, were way ahead of their time. And I know that there are good people like yourself that don't subscribe to all of those things. But he just described the jihadis to a T there, to an absolute T.
To a T.
And that's over 200 years ago.
The problem is, Chris, that when you look at today's culture, the Gen Xers, the Gen Zs, they don't know history. They don't read. Whatever they see on TV, they believe. Whatever they see on the news, they believe. Whatever they see on
the millennials and the Gen Zs, we're Gen X. We got this down pat.
Yeah. Chris, the problem is that, I mean, when you look at today, I mean, let's go back to the 70s when you and I were in school. And we got up every morning, we went to school, we said the Pledge of Allegiance, there was God in the schools. We were open to be able to talk about other cultures, other religions, but there was no, I'm better than you are. Now it's gotten to the point where my color is better than yours, my religion is better than yours, my culture is better than yours, because that's what I think, and you can't debate me on it because you'll hurt my feelings. When did that become okay? When did that become okay that you could be such a soy boy and get your feelings hurt and get thrown in jail for that?
I don't know. It's all tied to this politically correct bullshit. But when you were saying 70s and 80s, I was thinking to myself, the entire time, elementary, middle, and high school, we said the Lord's Prayer every single morning. Every morning.
Same here.
You know, it's
same here.
That's a whole different rabbit hole. Let's try stick on the Crusades topic for today.
Chris, the point is, I mean, when you took God out of the schools, you turned the culture against itself. That's when the genocide started. When you said that we can't talk about God and we cannot talk about the flag, we cannot talk about pledges of allegiance in schools, that's when America's fabric started to crumble. And now we're seeing the result of that 20, 30 years down the road as what we're seeing on TV, where it's okay to be homosexual. It's okay to be woke. It's okay to be transsexual. We can't hurt their feelings because you know that we have to include them. When did that become part of Judeo-Christian beliefs?
Yeah, I mean, man, we could go down a bunch of rabbit holes there, but this article here is essentially the transition from the Command 11 SITREP to the main topic of this special report. So I'm going to open it up quickly here with some background to this, okay? So, number one, the Crusades were responses to 400 years of Islamic conquest that consumed 2/3 of the Christian world at the time. And you have to understand this truth to get your head wrapped around what's occurring right now as far as the spiritual and cultural warfare that is threatening and destroying Western civilization. So the first segment I titled Busting the Big Lies About the Crusades. And before I jump any further into that, I do want to mention that up until last night, all y'all who bought Carnival, every $100 you got a virtual ticket. They are drawing the 5 winners today, and you will be getting Carnival products, Carnival swag, Carnival, pardon me, and you'll be getting a lifetime Survival Dispatch Guardians membership. And we're also running 40% off Guardian annual memberships until midnight tonight at survivaldispatch.news. You get all of our encrypted channels. You'll be able to be part of our Element community as we transition in Q1 over to Element. But we don't get affiliate income from these guys. Carnival.com, they give us a stipend to help offset expenses. Taking Element, putting it into a hosted environment, just to give you an idea here, our software subscriptions will be over $5,000 a month at that point in time. You got to sell a lot of memberships at $8 a month to cover $5,000 just in software stuff. But either way, if you go to carnival.com, use the code EATMEAT, get 10% off. Forward your receipts for over $99 to us at survival or support at survivaldispatch.com. We will give you a 30-day extension for free on your annual membership every time that you do that. All right, back to segment number 1, busting the big lies about the Crusades. So people have been fed this story for years that the Crusades, were a bunch of power-hungry Christians picking a fight with these peaceful Muslims out of nowhere. But that's straight up bullshit and propaganda. And it's designed to make the West look like bad guys. In reality, this myth, this big lie that's been told, ignores the bigger picture of constant attacks on Christian lands that went on for hundreds of years before anyone even thought about mounting up for a crusade. It's kind of like things currently, right? We should recognize we're at war. We should be going on the offense. We're still not going on the frickin' offense. And that's not something that's new. Call it to white Anglo-Saxon Protestants, WASPs. But eventually they got pushed to the point where they pushed back, and they went from being in a desperate defensive situation to pushing back against this evil land grab. And once you peel back these layers and you see how twisting the Crusades story helps justify today, well, we did these Crusades in the past. It's stolen land. We should give the land back to these people. Bullshit. It was all defensive. The Crusades were not offensive. It was fighting back about being invaded, for crying out loud. And there's no justification to roll over or capitulate, like Khalid said today. And if we carry on down this path, I'm telling you, it will be the death of Western civilization. I am not advocating for violence, but I'm telling you, you got to fight back, and you got to fight back hard. And we have to get these people the hell out of our countries. We've got to strip them of any type of naturalization that they have. We have to engage in remigration. Means you're going back to the shithole that you came from. You are not American. You don't love American. You're sure as fuck not the fabric of America, as that shitbag Ilhan Omar likes to say. Well, we Somalis, we're the fabric of America. Like, fuck you are. You're the fabric of a garbage country in a garbage part of the world that just ripped off Minnesota taxpayers $9 billion. Don't tell me you're the fabric of America. You're the fabric of everything that's wrong. And you need to get the hell out of our frickin' country. So, Khalid, I got to ask you a question here. Let me get you back on stage. Let's actually go over to the other stage here so I can get Khalid in the spotlight. All right. So, question for you, Khalid. Why are schools and movies pushing this idea that the Crusades were completely unprovoked and that we were bullying Muslims when in fact we were defending ourselves?
Well, when you want to brainwash a culture, you start with the television, you start with movies, and you reprogram what people believe. No matter what you learn in church, no matter what you learned in Sunday school, when you see a television program painting the picture differently and people talking about it being that that's what really happened, and you're not smart enough to open a history book to figure out what the real story is, you have been brainwashed. That is the first key of brainwashing someone. It's what's known in the psychological warfare side as gaslighting. We're telling you something that we want you to believe that's completely opposite of what the truth is. That is what gaslighting is. And that's what you're doing to the American public. You're doing it with the news. You're doing it with the print media. you're doing with magazines, you're doing with advertising, you're doing with television, you're doing with movies, you're doing with conversations. Everything is gaslighting you. So you start to believe that we were the bad guys. We did something wrong. We shouldn't have done this. I'll connect it this way. The fact that you, as an American taxpayer, are paying the Taliban for attacking their country and helping the Taliban rebuild Afghanistan is another way of saying, sorry, we were wrong in attacking Afghanistan. We shouldn't have waged a war on terrorism. That is a mentality that does not exist for me. It does not make sense. How can you at any point believe that you were wrong in waging that war? But again, when you look at the mentality that's been plugged into the US, well, you know, maybe we shouldn't have done that. Maybe we were wrong in doing this. Maybe we shouldn't have done this. It's a known fact. If you want peace, prepare for war. That is a known fact. Every one of us who's fought a war has that etched in our blood, that if we want peace, we must wage war, because we don't get peace because we want peace. We have to create our own peace. What they're doing right now is they are forcing people to decide whether the church is telling you the truth or whether the television is telling you the truth. And people are believing the TV instead of the church.
Khalid, who's benefiting from this misrepresentation over the Crusades? Somebody's has to be benefiting financially, power-wise, somehow, by perpetuating this myth that the Crusades were offensive in nature. Are we supposed to be paying some sort of penance for something that never happened? Or who's to gain? Who's standing to gain from this? The invaders, right?
Look at it this way, Chris. Look at it this way. When you have someone invading your country, and you have someone that is waging war against your culture, when they have the media backing them, it makes it much easier for them to do the land grab. No one is talking about the $9 billion that was stolen from the Minnesota taxpayers. No one is talking about the $40 million that every week is sent to the Taliban, because for some reason, it's okay to do that. We should be doing that. Why is it that a Taliban fighter who was killed in the war on terror is getting a remittance from the Taliban paid by US taxpayers? Are you not saying we were wrong in waging that war? Is that not the ideology? Is that not the mentality you're pushing forward to the people that are invading your country? That we were wrong. We shouldn't have done that. We shouldn't have invaded.
I mean, I don't even have a response right now. Somebody's telling me to watch out for my blood pressure. My watch is going off. This stuff just irks me to no end. I mean, it's just people are so easily fooled. But let's have the church's opinion here. So this has been true since the 7th century, which is why a bishop in the oldest Christian church in the West recognizes it. And much of what you've been told about the Crusades is a lie. They were originally defensive in nature to defend against Islamic invasion. Bishop Anthonius Snyder speaks very clearly. They are not refugees. They are invaders who want to Islamize Europe. They want to destroy historical culture in Europe. 1 minute, 43 seconds.
Yes, this is very serious. Now we are witnessing an invasion. They are not refugees. No, this is an invasion of mass Islamization of Europe, which already went on for at minimum 50, 60 years, Islamization in Europe. But now it is in mass. It is very evident. And so this is a global political agenda by the powerful of the world to destroy Europe culturally and religiously. I mean, to destroy Christianity ultimately in Europe, with the help of the massive Islamic population. And I was reading recently an article of a sociologist who made a calculation that maybe in 30 or 40 years, when it's now going on, so the majority of the population of Europe will be Islamic. Europe will be Islamic when this will go on, because the European people have almost no children, 1 or 2. The Muslims there, they have 5, 6 to 10 children. And so it is, you can only make mathematics, and then you can see that they will be in the majority. And so maybe it is a permission of God that then the church, being surrounded by an Islamic society, which is not tolerant and which will not be tolerant, and then the Christianity, the church will be maybe purified with this, and the purification is good also sometimes.
So a lot there. Cletus, want to quickly address a comment here. So Mr. Buff says nobody's talking about the constant trafficking, sacrifice of all the many thousands of little children. Huge industry just below drugs now. Money numbers. That's only what they've got. You clearly haven't been following us for very long. J.J. Carroll's a very close personal friend of mine. He's the one who did the 2-part documentary and testified in front of Congress on that very subject. 2-part documentary called This is Treason, thisistreason.com. I could not tell you how many subject matter experts I've had on my podcast on that topic. We have done dedicated episodes. We have covered it ad nauseum the past 3 years. It's not fair to say nobody's talking about it when we have, and we've been talking about it for quite some time. And we have brought information to the table that other podcasts had no idea about until I went into my Rolodex and started pulling subject matter experts out and had them come and speak to our audience. So we are talking about, as a matter of fact, we're sitting on some intelligence right now that would probably end up in all of us committing suicide by shooting ourselves 3 times in the back of the head if we released it. We have been center court on this as far as child sex trafficking is concerned. So with that being said, Khalid, let's talk about what the priest just had to say. Just give me your take on his synopsis.
Well, he's 100% right. I mean, I hate saying it that way, but when you look at what the Islamists have done, their goal is to colonize. They've done it in Great Britain. They've done it in France. They are in, I'd say about 60% have done it in Germany. Spain, Portugal, all of these countries are being colonized by these Islamic ideologies. Again, the driver behind this is Muslim Brotherhood in Qatar. And no one wants to talk about that. No one wants to talk about who's funding these people. When you leave that piece out, all of a sudden this conversation becomes very difficult, because you cannot fund this kind of migration. You cannot fund this kind of political ideology without a hell of a lot of money behind you. And Qatar gives you that money. They are the bankers for every terror organization in the world. They are the bankers for the Muslim Brotherhood. They fully support the Muslim Brotherhood. That is why the U.S. has not taken any action against Muslim Brotherhood. When you don't recognize who your enemy is and you let them in the door of your house, you cannot kick them out. That's what people need to learn from Europe, is they let the enemy in, they took their money, they said, we'll be your friends, and the people who were your enemies took the mask off and said, ta-da, this is who I really am. And now you have no way to get them out.
Yeah, well, let's show a little bit of historical perspective as we move into segment number 2. So the top half of this image, each of those red dots, those are the Muslim conquest battles. So we'll scroll up a bit. Myth, the Crusades were an act of aggression. Reality. So all of these red dots here were the jihadis taking over parts of the Mediterranean. If you look down at where the Crusade battles were, here they were. Now keep in mind, Turkey was a Christian country at the time. Egypt, this whole area was Christian. Syria was Christian at that point in time. And these were defensive measures on the part of the Christians. Look at the difference in the number of red dots. Look at where the red dots are. This is the reality of the situation, not the bullshit that's been fed to people that the Crusades were offensive in nature. They were defensive, trying to protect their land. So let's get into segment number 2 here, Khalid. And I titled it The Real Spark, Centuries of Takeovers Before the First Crusade. So long before the first knight hit the road to Jerusalem, Muslim armies had been rolling through Christian spots like wildfire. They grabbed Egypt, Syria, North Africa, and even pushed into Spain and right up to Europe's doorstep by the 700s. And these weren't just quick raids. They were full-on conquests that wiped out churches, forced conversions, turned thriving Christian areas into battlegrounds, leaving folks in Constantinople begging for the Pope for backup begging the Pope, for backup after nonstop sieges. And by the time Pope Urban II called for the Crusades in 1095, it was like the West finally hitting the emergency button after watching their neighbors get swallowed up, proving this was time to go on the offense and reclaim stolen territory. It wasn't some, random event. Khalid, I don't know how well versed you are in everything related to the Crusades, but if you do have knowledge of, I'd be curious to hear what you think was the most brutal battle, whether it was the Muslim invasion or the Crusaders trying to defend themselves. Does any particular point in history stand out to you?
Well, for me, look, I look at it from both points of view, because I understand Christianity. I also understand Islam. The problem that we have is when you look at how the battles were waged against Christians, it was much more than a conquest. It was a conquering. I mean, they went in with the intent to destroy the civilization and reform it in the mentality they wanted it to be. When you look at what the Christians did, they came back to take back what belonged to them to begin with. It was not offensive what the Christians did. What the Muslims did at the time before the Crusades, you went into places that were completely Christian and forced them to convert. It's what we're seeing right now in Africa. It's what we're seeing right now in the Middle East. It's what we're seeing in other countries in the world, where people are being forced to convert to an Islam or face punishment. That's what happened before the Crusades. What we're going to see right now, and again, if you connect the Crusades to what's going on right now, it's the exact same thing. You have had the invasion. You have had the people come, and they've taken their masks off now and said, we're not here just to assimilate. We're here to take over. And at some point, you are going to have to stand up and fight. That's what the Crusades were all about, were the Christians coming back and standing up for what Jesus Christ said, what the Bible says, and taking their territory back. That's where we are right now. And people are not understanding that's the crucial tipping point we're at right now. That either you stand up and defend your culture and defend your religion, or you capitulate. And once you capitulate, you're done. You are going to be forced to accept things that you would never want to accept. And that's exactly what the Crusades were. It was a crusade. The Christianity came back to take back what was theirs.
So I'll take a stab at it here myself. I think if there was call it a quintessential moment of the Crusades or a turning point, it would be the Byzantine Crusades. So the Pope calls for the first crusade in 1045, and 107 years later, in 1202, is when things went to hell in a handbasket between the Christians and, I guess they were called like the Byzantine Empire. And that strategic alliance basically disappeared, like just became mutual distrust. And that was the direct cause of Constantinople in 2 years later in 1204, falling. I think that was kind of, for me at least, it stands out. I'm not an expert and I'm not a historical expert, but that one stands out to me as the big thing, right? This is when, I think reality sunk in for Christians that, holy shit, we let them take advantage of us for hundreds of years. They conquered us. We've been told we have to go fight back against them. We make some allies. We go to fight against them. And what happens? Turkey falls, which was the biggest Christian country, in the Middle East at the time. And it's never been recaptured by Christians. I mean, if the Crusades was all bad stuff, how did Turkey go from being a Christian country to a non-Christian country, and the Christians never managed to take it back over again? it was defensive. The Crusades were defensive, and they were losses for the most part, other than the very end where we would push back and said, stay away. So here's my question for you. Why do you think it took so long for Europe and the West to respond back then? And how does that correspond in your mind today to how slow we've been to react to this in the Western world?
Yeah, it's like I said before, Chris, when you look at history, when you understand history, Christianity has always turned the other cheek and said, we will help, we will try and work with you, we'll try and live with you to let you be who you are, but at the same time, let us be who we are. The problem is when you are invaded, they're not there to let you be who you are. They're going to force you to convert to what they want you to be. Now, when you jump to 2020, to 2018, 2019, 2020, and here at 2025, that's exactly what they've done. They moved into Christian countries. They pretended like they were there to assimilate and get opportunities and build their lives in a Christian world. But then they took off their mask when they got to a critical mass in their minds. Again, in their minds, they reached a critical mass. They said, okay, mask off, we're here to conquer you. That's where we are right now. The West should be learning from what's going on in Europe, because the Crusades started in Europe because Europe was conquered. Turkey itself, and I'm going to connect this way. Turkey, after Constantinople fell, Turkey has now become the home of the Muslim Brotherhood. Erdogan is the de facto president of the Muslim Brotherhood. That is being used to force the West to convert. Turkey being allowed into NATO is like allowing the Muslim Brotherhood to become part of NATO. How do you let your enemy become part of your defense force?
Yeah, well, you kowtow to all this crap that we're discussing today, especially the political correctness. So as we move into the third segment, Trader Jill has this to say: the shadowed conquest, Islam's forgotten 400-year march before the Crusades, my love letter to Europe and a grim reminder. Centuries before the first crusade cast its shadow, Islam surged across lands, not through whispers of peaceful evangelism, but through the unyielding blade of military conquest. Within 100 years of Muhammad's death, Christian Egypt fell. That was the year 641. Syria and Palestine were seized. North Africa was conquered. Spain was invaded the year 711. Wow. We got Special Agent 00711 and Spain was invaded in 711. Some connection there. Christian Armenia was under attack. Constantinople was besieged twice. Their ultimate goal to forge a vast, unyielding global Islamic caliphate that would engulf the world in its iron grip. By the dawn of the 11th century, a staggering 2/3 of the once mighty Christian realms had been ruthlessly seized. 2/3. Their ancient bastions crumbling under the relentless tide. So 2/3 of the Christian world conquered before we responded with the Crusades. Handful of fights versus what they did to us. I mean, people have been sold a false bill of goods on this, Clete. The people honestly believe that the Crusades were some, aggressive move on our part, and it couldn't be further from the truth. And I think it plays into this whole mentality of, let's call it reparations mentality, right? Like what was the actual number? Something like 1.5%. Slavery to this day is ginormous in Africa. The blacks have been the biggest slave owners ever in history, but 1.5% of Americans at the height of slavery here had slaves, and yet all of us who were not alive during that time in the 1800s, we somehow own reparations. Yeah, like fuck we do.
Yeah.
And so the same thing goes with this crusade stuff, right? Well, you're bad guys. You WASPs are bad guys, white Anglo-Saxon Protestants, and you went on the Crusades, and therefore you need to give back what you took. We didn't fucking take anything. We were raped for hundreds of years, but they've convinced the weak-minded amongst us that it's complete exact opposite. It's this whole Saul Alinsky thing that Obama did, right? It's always they speak in terms of what they're doing and blame it on the other side, and then if you push back against, well, you're a racist, white supremacist. You know, it's a bunch of bullshit, man, just bullshit. So let's get into segment number 3 here, Khalid. All right, so I titled this one, What the Knights Knew, Fighting for Faith and Way of Life. The Crusaders weren't glory hounds chasing loot. They locked eyes on the raw truth that their whole world, churches, families, and the freedom to live as Christians was getting crushed under endless attacks from the East. From the beaches of the Holy Land to the gates of Vienna later on, they saw the dominoes falling as one Christian holdout after another got overrun, forcing them to grab swords and shields just to keep the cross flying over their children's future. That gut level understanding of survival mode is what drove them through hellish marches and bloody fields, reminding us today that ignoring threats to our core beliefs doesn't make them vanish, just hands the win to the invaders. Khalid, I'm just curious, in your mind, is there anything that you reckon that gave those Crusaders, those knights, the motivation and the wherewithal to go? Was it because they saw their families being killed? Was it because they saw their land being taken? Was it because of their religion was being squashed? Was it because they were being killed, maimed, and tortured? Were they being enslaved? Or is it just all of the above?
Well, it is all of the above, because when you lose your culture, all of a sudden you feel the need to rise up, and that again, that applies to warriors only, not to the people that are going to capitulate anyway. People that fight, people that stand up for what they believe, are going to stand up and fight no matter what. And when you see what brought the knights to battle, it was because they saw their culture being destroyed. They saw their religion being attacked. They saw their families being taken. They saw their land being taken. And they said, wait a minute, why am I tolerating this? Why am I allowing this to happen? And when they finally rose up and fought back, the battle wasn't very difficult, because again, when you're fighting for what's right, you will win. And you're fighting against people that you have allowed to invade, you have allowed to take over. You have given them that space because you were tolerant. When you give up the tolerance and decide to fight back, victory is yours. That's a promise to everyone. Victory is yours when you stand up to fight for what is right. But we've all decided that, well, we should be punished for what we've said. We should be punished for what we've done. Collective punishment has become the accepted norm. And it's not everyone that did it. Just like you just said, 1.5% of Americans kept slaves, but somehow all Americans owe reparations. How do you justify that? How do you justify American taxpayers paying Taliban families who died in the war on terror fighting American soldiers reparations? These are things that when you look at it, you're going, wait a minute, you're emboldening the enemy against you, because you're showing them that you accept your weakness, you accept it as failure. That's not what America was built on. That's not what Christianity was built on. What is right, and what is right is always right. That's what drives the knights to stand up. That's what drives warriors to stand up. That's what drives people to join the military, to fight for the United States, because that flag will always fly over your head. We have a statement, we have a belief in Pakistan, in our organization, Command 11, that you must defend the flag that flies over your head. If it's American, you fight for America. If it's Pakistani, you fight for Pakistan. If it's Iraq, you fight for Iraq. We have history to prove what happened to Iran in the 70s. They went from being a Western culture to being completely controlled by an Islamic ideology. Kabul was considered the Paris of the East. Now look at Kabul. No woman can walk around in a miniskirt or even normal clothing, because the Taliban has taken control. We have seen what they've done. We don't want that happening to the West, because that's not what the West was built on. And when the knights stand up, when the warriors stand up, that's when you will see this ideology destroyed.
Well, I'll just say this, as far as reparations are concerned, hundreds of thousands of Americans gave their lives during the Civil War, and there's your reparations right there, which, by the way, ironically, I read an article yesterday, and I can't speak to the veracity of it, but the author basically said that the death toll during our Civil War was closer to 850,000, not 650,000. And that there were some people who feel that it was actually 1 million Americans died during the Civil War. I mean, there's your reparations right there. But let's move on to the next piece of this, Cleeds. Let me get my notes back up here. Actually, I got one more question for you. If you were able to go back in time, Cleed, and you could ask one of the Crusaders, one of these knights, any one question, just one question, what would it be? I know it's open-ended, but I'm curious what you would ask.
Well, my question always, I mean, this is something we ask people all the time that fight for their religions. What was the motivator? What finally made you stand up and pick up a weapon? Because that's what we need to understand right now is, what is it going to take for Christians today to stand up and fight? Because you're being conquered. You're committing genocide on your own. And there was something in those Crusaders that finally went click. And when that click happened, they picked up the sword and they picked up the shield. I would want to know what the motivating factor was. What made you turn? What made you decide it was time to fight?
And it was hundreds of years, which many people don't realize. It was hundreds of years of subjugation before they did that. This sums things up pretty nicely here. You know, Muslims occupy Christian countries, kill Christians, and change the name of the Church of the Holy, I'm not sure how to pronounce that name, sepulchre, to the Church of Garbage. Yeah. Then the heroic Crusaders came to stop the Muslims from oppressing Christians. They made a treaty to guarantee the protection of Christians from being killed, and then left without occupying land, even though they were capable of doing so. The Crusades were defensive and not acts of occupation like those of the Muslims. It's a pretty decent synopsis that runs contrary to everything that children are taught in school. So that's the first 3 segments down. As per usual, we have 5 segments, so we've got 2 more to go before we jump into the 4th segment. I want to say Merry Christmas to our friends at Wasatch Wagyu, and thank you for getting me hooked on this freaking crack cocaine. So this is like the best jerky in the entire world. All of our Guardian members who bought this have come back to me and said, oh my God, it is like crack cocaine. This stuff is unbelievable. I've got the world's worst jerky habit now. I used to love jerky, but now I'm absolutely hooked on like crack cocaine. If you go to wasatchwagyu.com, and I'll put it in the live chat in a minute, use code SD20, you get 20% off. We do not get paid affiliate income by them. We do get a stipend from them, helps us defer our expenses, which we're very happy for. But wasatchwagyu.com, code SD20 to get 20% off. So segment number 4, I titled Today's Sneaky Attacks, Woke Ideas, Wide Open Gates, and Faith on the Chopping Block. So right now, we've got stuff like cultural Marxism sneaking in through schools, Hollywood, TV, movies, you name it. You've got that in turn causing consternation in families. You've got people arguing over free speech, hate speech, arguing over pride in our history versus no pride in our history and being ashamed of it and trying to engage in revisionist history, doing stupid things like taking statues down and changing the names of our military bases, on and on and on, all while the people who are bitching and complaining about that threw our borders open for 4 years and let waves upon waves upon waves of people from third world shitholes who hate us into the country, who then in turn ripped us off for billions of dollars. And regardless of whose numbers you want to believe, let's just go at the bottom end. Joe Kent, head of the NCTC, National Counterterrorism Center, flat out stated in front of Congress last week, 18,000 known ISIS, Al-Qaeda warriors were released into the United States by the old Biden administration installation. They weren't even a legit administration. Technically, we know the number is much higher than that. But think about the damage that was done on 9/11 tactically. I'm not going to get into the strategic side of it because we could go down some very deep rabbit holes as far as who financed it, who was in charge, who plotted it, so on and so forth. But tactically, you had 19 individuals inflict the worst attack ever on American soil. Now imagine what 18,000 of those jihadis is capable of doing, right? 9/11 2.0 that we cover regularly in the Long War series, 10 to 15 tier 2 cities, population 100, 500,000, attacked simultaneously by 10 to 15 sleeper cells in each of the 10 to 15 cities with 4 to 12 jihadis each, 3,000 terrorists on the loose with bombs, machine guns, sarin nerve gas. It's a big number. It's a really big number. So while we don't have, traditional battle lines like we've had in previous wars, and we don't have tanks rolling in, there's been this just constant grind of policies that's been gutting our Christian roots, gutting our American conservative values, gutting our liberties. And when you flood your country with all these people from other countries that are not compatible with our values, they don't even have any respect for our rules, for crying out loud. That kind of starts to chip away at all of us as far as, pride in our country and overall spirit. So, the conquests of years gone by during the Crusades and the stuff that happened that instigated the Crusades, we're going through the same thing, just in a different manner because of this asymmetrical 5th generation warfare again, where there's not necessarily a front line with tanks or people rolling up on horses with swords, whatever the weapons may be. This is some pretty sneaky shit. It's the weaponization of migration, which Khalid mentioned earlier. Khalid, let's change gears a little bit and let's talk about this unholy alliance between radical Islam and Marxism, Antifa, and all those shitheads. Take it away.
Well, look, Antifa is a mercenary organization. I mean, they'll do whatever you want them to do for money. They are the useful idiots. The bigger problem we have in the U.S. is the Mexican and the Venezuelan gangs. Those are weaponized. They are there to fight. The trigger on them flips much faster than it does on anybody else. When you look at an organization like TDA is connected to IRGC, which is connected to Venezuela, which is connected to Iran, and you've got this nice little chain of how money is funneled into the U.S. to fight a war on one level. I'm one of those people that looks at asymmetric warfare a different way. Asymmetric warfare is a moving battle line. It is mental, it is physical, it is emotional, it is spiritual. Asymmetric warfare is meant to tear a culture down by attacking its people. When you start going after a person and changing the way they think, changing what they believe, changing how they believe, and changing their behaviors, you've won the war without fighting. That's the thing behind asymmetric warfare. And that's what they've been able to do through Obama, through Biden. The first Trump administration, they tried to change some of this, but Trump didn't vet his people in his cabinet the way he should have, and he brought the wrong people in. Trump 2.0 has done the same thing. He's repeated that same mistake. The problem is this time, the tipping point is right now. And what happens from here on forward, I'm one of those people who believes that you should have already attacked Venezuela. This should not have been dragged out as long as it is. You should have hit Venezuela when you decided that Venezuela was a target. Forget the boats that they're sending with drugs. Hit the camps, hit the factories inside of Venezuela and stop them. That way you would have taken out IRGC fighters. You would have taken out their gangs. You would have taken out their ability to carry out any kind of warfare inside the United States. That would have affected the jihadis as well. But the reason you have held this up and held this up and held this up, you have empowered them with the belief that you're not willing to attack. That is not what U.S. policy has ever been. Defending the United States means defending the United States. And when you've got an enemy that's that close to your border, has already infiltrated your country, has already funneled so much money in, you have empowered the enemy. That's what asymmetric warfare is. And where we stand right now in the US is, if the Trump administration does not wake up to what's going on, you are going to have to deal with gangs, leftists, radicals, jihadis, Marxists, communists, all working together. How do you fight 7 different groups in one country?
Well, I mean, again, we have to engage in remigration. We got to get these people the hell out of our country. And we've got to use the laws that are on the books. But question for you, Khalid. If the West doesn't grow a set of balls and stand up for our rights ASAP, what do you reckon the West looks like, including America and Europe, in 20 years?
I don't even need 20 years, 5 years from now. You will be at the next Iran and Afghanistan. That's next 5 years, because you have already let it happen. And the mentality that's been created with television and advertising, you have already created a culture that says being white is wrong, being American is wrong, holding American values and holding on to the fabric of what created the United States is wrong. 5 years, not even 20, 5 years, and America will no longer be the country we see today.
How do you reckon balkanization plays into this? Balkanization, which is well underway here in the United States.
Oh, it's very easy. It's very easy. You have already lost California. California is a country. The way Gavin Newsom is running California, he's running it like a country he's running it like a country. He's not running it like a state. So he's making deals with the Chinese to bring Chinese funding into California, build factories, make whatever deals he wants, because he doesn't see California as part of the United States. If you look at the state of Texas, if, God forbid, Greg Abbott wins again as governor, Texas is gone. It is gone. If Doc Pete wins, we have a chance of winning Texas back again, because Doc Pete's belief and understanding of how to fight a war against these kinds of animals is much better than what Greg Abbott does. And because of Texas being the border state, and it is the foundation of America. If you lose Texas, you have lost the US. That means you will see certain states break off into one country, another group of states break off into another country, another group of states break off into another country, because the fabric is gone. The belief system is gone. Balkanizing the US is something that has been going on for well over 20 years. And people have not noticed it.
Yeah, they sure haven't. Doc Pete, of course, a personal friend of mine. And the problem that Doc Pete's running into is there's a lot of big money players who want to back him, but aren't going to back him, because if Abbott gets back in again, they fear repercussions of supporting Doc Pete instead of Abbott. So some of them are keeping money to themselves, where there's formerly, they backed Abbott, but Abbott's just a WEF puppet. He's another World Economic Forum puppet. Yep. So before we go into the 5th and final segment, let's knock out a few posts here. The greatest threat to Western civilization isn't global warming or Marxism. The real danger is the deliberate weakening of men through social engineering and chemicals in our food/water, and the erosion of our Christian values, the very foundation of the West. Right now, Western civilization stands on a precipice. Unless we take drastic action within our lifetimes, it will cease to exist as the world's preeminent civilization. If nothing changes, this isn't a possibility. It's a mathematical certainty. Hard times create strong men. Strong men create good times. Good times create weak men. Weak men create hard times. And as much of a cliche as that may sound, that's the absolute truth. Let me just knock a couple other quick ones out here, Khalid. The greatest threat is the coordinated globalist assault on Western civilization. It's the insidious network of cultural Marxist, open border fanatics, and unelected Davos elites who seek to destroy the family, erase national sovereignty, and make you own nothing. They are engineering our decline from within, and the compliant media is their primary weapon. And then one more, The present day crusades are primarily fought in the information space by lobbyists, institutes of mass destruction, social media, psyops, and attacking elections. Goals of the modern day crusades are similar, reclaiming an ideological dominion over the land and its people. So, Khalid, let's jump into segment 5 and then take each of those articles into account. So I titled it "Time to Gear Up Modern Defenders Like the Old Knights." So we basically have to shake this off, this trance that we're in, and find that fire in the belly that the Crusaders had. And we've got to stand up as Americans for American values. And we're going to have to fight. We are at war. We are going to have to fight for remigration is the only thing that can potentially save our country. We've got to get these people out of our country, and we've got to prosecute the people who are breaking laws and not just continually releasing them through these revolving doors so that they can create more and more crimes. If we did those two things, remigration and enforce laws that are on the books, we would be in way better shape to accomplish the second one. We got to blow up the judiciary that's completely lost its way. And we can do that because they're a construct of Congress. They're financed by Congress. They are not a co-equal branch of government. It's happened before. Look up the Judicial Act of 1801 and then 1802, which, if memory serves me right, that was John Quincy, if memory serves me right, who basically blew up the judiciary because they were doing the same things these clowns are doing today, as far as thinking that they're on equal footing to the executive when they're not. And then the remigration, we've got to get behind this, which means that when you take people like that Jacob Frey in Minnesota, we have got to shut people like that down. People who are inciting violence against ICE they have to be held accountable and go to jail. And that's one of the biggest problems we have in our society right now. Lack of accountability on the part of politicians and bureaucrats, that they never face any accountability for anything. Doesn't matter where people stand on Trump, for example. That was an illegal raid of Mar-a-Lago, and the people behind that should be held accountable. Are they going to be held accountable? Not unless we grow a set of balls really fast and make this shit happen. We need some sort of moment in time to galvanize people so that we stand up and say enough is enough, get these people out of our country, and make sure that all these public officials are held accountable for what they're doing. So, Khalid, I'm curious if you have any thoughts on what could the average person do towards achieving those two goals, accountability and remigration. Those two things right there would make a world of difference.
Well, let's start with remigration. The biggest draw for these people to come to the U.S. is getting jobs and making money. So if you can get them out of the workforce and you can start letting them earn money, that's one way to force them out of your country. The second thing is getting them off goddamn welfare. When they're receiving American taxpayer money to sit at home and play video games and talk shit about America and still getting SNAP benefits, that is something that has to stop. My problem here is Donald Trump. Donald Trump needs to make a decision. Either he is America first or there is no America at all. Because he was elected on the slogan America first, that he would put Americans first. That means you need to get rid of illegals. That means you don't need to offer a incitement and an incentive to illegals to leave your country. Giving them $3,000 in a plane ticket, they'll be back in 6 months and they'll get another $3,000 and a plane ticket. You need to stop rewarding people for violating the law. That's number one. Number two, all of these people in the bureaucracy that have been planted by Biden and Trump 1.0, they need to be removed. And I mean flat out, you're fired. You're done. Go home, relax. You are done working for the government. If you don't make that decision, they are still controlling what is happening in the United States. They are still controlling policy. The State Department under Rubio is still a Muslim Brotherhood State Department. They have more influence there. They have more power there than Marco Rubio does himself, because Trump is allowing it. You need to make that decision. If it's America first, then make America first. Don't compromise on the values of the American people.
So you're going to have to bear with me here, Khalid. My my crack addiction to the Wasatch Wagyu jerky. Oh my God. I can't go this long without eating it. I have to get up in the middle of the night, eat one every 2 hours or so. Do you figure 9/11 2.0 galvanizes enough that people actually stand up and say enough's enough? Is that what it's going to take, a massive attack 9/11 2.0?
No. My fear with 9/11 2.0 is that it's going to come down to a surrender. It's going to come down to a capitulator fight. And I don't know, with the mentality that's been built into the American people over the past 20 years through advertising and television and media, if you're going to have a lot of Americans that will stand up and fight. I don't think anyone in the North will. The northern part of the United States, I think we've lost, because they've gone so liberal. There are so many blue states. There are so many sanctuary cities in the northern part of the U.S. that I don't think they'll stand up and fight. When you look at the South, I think the jihadis are going to get their asses handed to them. And that is a belief that I understand very clearly, because the South has always fought for American values. It's always been the conservative belt. The North, I think we've lost. From New York all the way to Seattle, we've lost that. Maybe Wyoming and Idaho, we may see a little bit of force there, but I don't think we're gonna keep most of the North, because again, the media has done a great job of gaslighting people.
Yeah, they sure have, no question. Again, don't mind me. I have to feed my crack addiction here to the Wasatch Wagyu. I have a pile beside me at all times. It's like my crutch now. Anyway, I think that pretty much wraps it up as far as our main topics are concerned. Clearly, let me get you back on stage in this one. That pretty much wraps it up as far as the modern day Crusades are concerned. I'll just end it by saying that I hope that, well, I don't hold out any hope that we can stop 9/11 2.0, but something good always comes out of every bad situation. I'm hoping that that's the spark that lights a fire under our ass to pursue two things: accountability of public officials and remigration. If we can strive towards those two goals, we can save the country. If we don't engage in accountability and remigration, we're cooked. We're going to become completely balkanized, and balkanization is the last step before civil war, because balkanization defines the battle lines. So, for example, if you had the entire left coast, right? Washington State, Oregon, California, and they're all on they're not real Americans, TM Randy Nance. That's a battle line that gets drawn, right? Yep. So I don't want to see any of this happen, but I don't see any way out of this other than we're going to have to fight like hell to reclaim our country, our culture. It's just not going to come any other way. So with that being said, Khalid, this has become one of my favorite times of the entire podcast. It's kind of, I don't have my co-pilot Randy with me tonight, but 3, 2, 1. All right, so it is time for the not conflicted, golly. See, I get when I'm you eat
the Wagyu, and that's what happens, Chris.
If I don't eat enough of this stuff, I start to lose my mental capacity. The Carnival hero of the day, and I'm trying to remember who submitted this to us. Oh, Numachan did, from the Guardians chat. And I'm trying to remember the aspect. I can't remember why I chose this as the hero of the day. It may even be the reader submitted story of the day. Either way, Carnival's sponsoring this section. Show this video to your kids, 1 minute, 59 seconds. We'll let the whole thing play.
The dots on this screen represent an adult life in months, assuming a life expectancy of 90. So if you're 18 years old right now, this is an optimistic estimate of the months that you have left. Take a second to take that in. Probably not as many as you would expect. And I'm sorry to say that it does get worse, because about a third of that time is going to be spent sleeping. On average, 126 of those months will go to school and your career. About 18 will be spent driving, 36 cooking and eating, 36 doing chores and errands, and about 27 in the bathroom and taking care of personal hygiene. So that leaves you with 334 months. This is where you pursue your passions and travel the world and leave your mark. How you spend this time is going to determine the quality of your life. So take a second and ask yourself, what do you want to do with that free time? Now, I would be willing to bet that scrolling through TikTok, binge watching Netflix, and playing video games probably did not come to mind. But today, the average 18-year-old in the United States is on pace to spend 93% of their remaining free time looking at a screen. Imagine getting to the age of 90, seeing this visualization of how you spent all your time after the age of 18, and thinking about all the things you could have done that you did not do because you got distracted.
So now I remember why I chose this as the hero of the day. He pointing out something that's brutally important, and you've heard me more than once refer to these things as weapons of mass distraction. Pretty sobering when you put it in the perspective that he did. And appreciate Mari, is her name, Numa-chan in the chat, for submitting that one. And the next one here, let me just restart this. This guy is very, very well spoken. And give me a second. All right, here we go. Oh, shoot, I forgot. You get Instagram, you got to stay on the tab.
We don't have the video, Chris.
Oh, sorry.
I read Surah 241, where Allah
Hold on.
says, believe in my...
Friggin' Instagram is such a pain in the ass where you can't start the video and finish. And I got it started and I forgot to share it with you. Golly, this is what happens when you work 17 hours a day, 7 days a week. Apologies. Duh. All right, we got it up now. Let me refresh it. You have to refresh the page because you can't pick up where you left off. Instagram's a shitty platform, man. All right, here we go.
Free Palestine from Islam. Amen. And turn to Jesus Christ. Is it true? Oh, you believe in the Bible? The Bible says Jesus is the Son of God. Do you believe that? No. So you don't believe in the Bible? Do you believe the Bible is true? No. So you don't really believe in the Bible? Allah Akbar. Allah, who's Allah? Jesus Akbar. Yeah, I read the Quran. Have you read the Quran? What did you read? You know what I read in the Quran? Okay, I read the Quran. Can I tell you what I read in the Quran? I read Surah 241, where Allah says, believe in my revelations, which confirm the scriptures of the Christians and Jews. In your Quran, Surah 547, it says that the people of the gospel, judged by what Allah has. In your Quran, it confirms that the Bible is inspired, preserved, and authoritative. And guess what? The Quran confirms the Bible that I have. Muhammad says in Surah 241, believe in my revelation, which confirm your scriptures. So why is the Quran confirming the scriptures that Christians and Jews have if the Bible was corrupted? So he tells me the Bible was corrupt. He's searching it up.
What Bible do you believe in?
Which Bible do I believe in?
And how many Bibles?
Hold on. Can you stop talking so I can respond?
Yeah.
Let me answer the question. Can I answer the, okay, what Bible I believe in? I believe in the Bible that the Quran confirmed. The one that was sent down by Allah, the Torah and the Gospel. Subhanallah, A'udhu Billah, Shaitan Rajim. Jesus Christ is Lord. The Quran confirms the Bible. Surah 7:157 says the Christians and Jews have the Torah and Gospel. The Quran says that the Christians and Jews have the scriptures in their hands. Baina Yadehi. Where's the Arabic speakers? Baina yadehi, meaning in between their hands or in their fingertips. Surah 241. So tell me why the Quran is confirming the Bible, but then contradicting the Bible. And that is called the Islamic dilemma. If the Bible is true, the Quran is false. If the Bible is false, the Quran is false because it confirms a false book. Hallelujah. Christ is Lord.
So I don't know. You're an expert on the Quran. I'm not. He had some pretty interesting things to say there, Khalid. What do you make of that?
He's absolutely right. He's absolutely right. That's the funny part about this whole thing, is these stupid fucking jihadis don't even understand what their own book says. They don't even understand what their own book says. I have said this on this podcast time and time again. Christians and Jews are respected and honored in the Quran. The Bible is a book we believe in. The Torah is a book we believe in. The Psalms of David is a book is what we believe in. There is an entire book in the Quran called Maryam, which is about Jesus's mother. How do you say that these people are infidels and we need to convert them when we believe in the same book that you believe in? That's where my problem with jihadis is you don't even understand the book you're fighting for. So what they were saying there, what that evangelist was saying there, was absolutely right. Absolutely right. It's what I was taught. It's what I believe in. And this is why I don't look at Christians as infidels, because you are people of the book. You are blessed. You are honored. You are respected in my book as well. So how do I say that no, Christians must be converted to Islam? Why? And those of you who actually read the Quran, when it's time for Judgment Day, the Quran even says Jesus will be sent by God to save the believers. That's what it says in the Quran. How do you not believe in the Bible? How do you not believe in the Torah when my book says the same thing?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of a catch-22 for lack of a better term. But either way, let's jump into the conflicted question here, Khalid. So someone close to Morgan is being held prisoner. A rescue mission would certainly cost lives on both sides. Would you risk the lives of your men for the sake of a loved one? If you were Morgan, how would you handle this situation? I'm guessing maybe you've lived this one. I was going to say, I'm guessing that you may have lived this one. Go ahead and roll with it, Khalid.
Look, we've done hostage rescues. We have gone in and gotten people out that have been taken. I was taken by the Taliban for 6 months. I was a hostage. We will risk our own lives to protect others. That's what we're here for. When you talk about being in the service of humanity, that means risking your life to save someone else, because tomorrow you're going to ask someone else to risk their life to save you as well. And when you are willing to ask someone else to do that, you have to be willing to do it yourself. So when it comes to my answer, we go and we protect and we save, because tomorrow we may need you to come and do that for us. So how do I not protect your loved one when I want you to protect mine?
Yeah, I mean, the problem with these conflicted questions is there's always a lot of context that's missing. So I don't know that I have a great answer to this one without all of that context, because I can see situations where I would say, well, we're going to raid wherever they're holding our person and get them back. And I can see other situations where, you know, if these other guys had a history of not of killing our people, then I might take a minute to try and plan something that has a higher chance of success. Either way, I'm going in, but when I go in just depends on those types of contextual things. I mean, if you run into a situation where the person's life's not in danger and they get killed, you get killed, a bunch of people get killed because you didn't take the time to think it through, I don't know that that's the best move. All I know is at some point we're moving in, but when we move in depends on what type of intelligence we've got out of it. So that is it for today's episode. We will be back on Friday with the next episode of our long war series, which is titled Descent, or Dissent, I should say. Dissent equals you're a domestic terrorist. If you dissent with what if you don't toe the line, follow the narrative, you're a domestic terrorist. And you'll see tools like Khalid's mentioned, I've mentioned Palantir used to that effect that, oh, Khalid posted something that went against the narrative on X. Therefore, we need to send the Gestapo to go and interview him. We probably need to dock his social credit score and take away a bunch of things from him. Or maybe we just need to throw him in jail because he's clearly a domestic terrorist, right?
Yep.
So,
Yep.
anyway, that is it. We hope y'all have a very Merry Christmas. Again, we will be back on Friday at the normal time. Between now and then, please like, share, comment, subscribe. God bless America.
God bless America. Merry Christmas, guys.
Enjoy the closing video, which is all about having a Merry Christmas. It's a brand new one.